everybody. Welcome to Brain Gains. We have a fantastic presentation lined up for you today. We have Brian Massey of Conversion Sciences here with us, and he is going to be doing live landing page reviews and teardowns. So, Brian, thank you so much for being here.
Wow, that was
I'm
quite a
gonna.
setup.
Well, I hope everyone here is familiar with who you are, but you founded and run Conversion Sciences and are like an industry thought leader on how to scientifically test and optimize landing pages. So we are in good hands here. Thank you so much. And go ahead and take it away.
All right, I will share my screen. Are you guys seeing this?
Yes, looks good.
Yes, so what I am really primarily hoping to do here is review some pages. I've just found that when you're talking about landing pages, we can talk theory all we want, but it's fantastic to actually look at some pages and apply the theory. So what I'm going to be doing is presenting you very quickly with some theory behind the way that we're looking at the pages, and then look at some of the submissions that were given to us ahead of time. And for those of you that are interested in having us look at your pages, we could use some more submissions as well. If you'll put those in the chat, I will check the chat and we'll be happy to do that live. Um, Diving right in, I think the first thing that we want to understand is how we collect ideas. So as we're designing a new landing page or we're evaluating an existing landing page, what sorts of ideas do we want to focus on? And there are five broad groups of hypotheses or ideas that we can have for improving a landing page or building a great landing page. The first of those buckets is messaging and value proposition. So is the value proposition of your campaign or the website communicated well in words and images? So we're going to be looking for things like your unique selling proposition. Do we get pretty quickly what's unique about your business and why someone should stick around? Do you have anything like guarantees or warranties? Do you have a return policy? We often see people come to us, they have fantastic return policies, and they don't mention it anywhere on the site except for some page that's off to the side that you might be able to click your way through. Are we getting what your brand proposition is, what your brand attitude is, what your brand voice is? Of course, the benefits of taking advantage of whatever's being offered on the page, the features that support those benefits, proof points. This is in copywriting terms, this is called a benefit sandwich. So you've got the benefit, the feature, and proof that you can actually deliver on that. Are you addressing issues like who this is targeted at? The second bucket is layout and UX. So does the page bring the visitor's eyes to those important parts of your value proposition? Designers really should be more like draftsmen in terms of getting the visitor to work through the page visually, have the visitor understand what's most important on the page, and work their way through that. So they're using things like color, they're using placement of things on the page, font size, font color, font choice. They use white space to make things stand out. They put things next to each other to associate things with each other. They use negative space to, again, help things pop. And these are all things that designers do well that I don't do well. But when some of these things are not used artfully, it becomes pretty apparent. And then things like highlighting elements, using arrows, circles, things like that. The next bucket is credibility and authority. Is your site putting things on the page that establishes your credibility, your authority in that space to deliver a quality version of whatever you're offering, product or the service? So how long have you been in business? How many products have you sold? How many transactions have you processed? Coming up with numbers like that can really add weight to your value proposition. Do you have any awards? Are you a member of any associations? Can you use those logos? And what we want to do is we're essentially borrowing trust from other authorities to bring onto our landing pages. Things like Better Business Bureau, especially for local businesses, local offers. The Better Business logo does carry weight. Have you been involved with any of the analyst reports, the four quadrants or the wave? The next bucket is social proof. Basically, you're answering the question, have other people like me had experience with this product and had positive experiences? So testimonials, ratings and reviews, more often associated with e-commerce sites, but you can get ratings and reviews. For instance, in the agency world, we use Clutch to collect reviews. Media outlets that have covered you. Again, if you put logos of well-known media outlets or media that has authority in your industry, you're borrowing trust from these other third parties. Customer logos, who's used your site, used your product, your service, and had success. And then the last bucket is security and risk reversal. So is my information safe? What's going to happen if I submit information to the site or give it my credit card for things that I'll be purchasing online? So we use things like links to your privacy policy, logos of Kathy Secure, Shopper Safe, VeriSign, especially if you're asking for a credit card. Cookie warnings are the pervasive, irritating, and right now necessary things required, especially if you're doing business in California or in Europe. Almost all of us are secure, have SSL security with the HTTPS. And in fact, Google has removed the little green indication that indicates it's a secure site. So these are the areas that we're going to be looking at when we look at the pages. Do they present a solid messaging and value proposition? Does the layout draw our eyes easily to the important parts of the page? Are they establishing some credibility and authority? Are they using social proof? And if necessary, are they using security and risk reversal to make me feel comfortable and confident giving information to the site? So our first submission was from Wild Child Salon and Extensions. Let me drag this over here. And I'm going to get rid of this. So what we were looking for on this landing page is that first understanding of what it's about. Hairstylist finishing school. Now I'm going to assume that finishing school is a term that will be relatable to people who are stylists or have been trained as stylists. Level up your hair care game. So when we're looking at establishing our value proposition, the headline is really important. And a lot of times we will use things like level up your game. Here it's listed as a subhead, but often what we find is level up your stylist game is the cool way of enticing people, and then hairstylist finishing school would be something that's in the subhead. One of the first things I would look at on your landing pages is, do you bury the lead? Is that great headline actually in your subhead? Here is a picture of somebody shopping at a salon, probably. Whenever we use images, they're also very important for establishing our value proposition. So this feels, even though it's irrelevant to the audience, this feels a little bit like filler. And the best way to know if an image is actually helping your value proposition is try to write a caption for it. If the caption you would write for the image doesn't make sense in the scope of what you're offering on the landing page, then you probably have the wrong image on the page. Caption for this might be, it's fun to shop for things in a styling salon. Here's a person in a styling salon. But it's pretty hard to write a caption that's related to this offer, which is actually a finishing school for somebody who's just finished styling, graduate from cosmetology school. So I think this could probably be done a little better. What are some things that make good images in terms of value propositions? Maybe a picture of someone who's been through the process, maybe a picture of the teachers, and you could caption them with their names and maybe the years of experience that they have. begin to think about how your image supports your value proposition. Are you a recent cosmetology graduate who is looking for guidance on what to do next? Whenever we ask questions, the best questions are the ones that don't have a yes or no answer. Um, Questions that make you say, that indicate you're going to promise something that is unusual is usually a little bit stronger. But this does a few things. Number one, it lets people know that whether or not they're in that target audience. And so it says recent cosmetology graduate. So they're very clearly saying who this page is for. And so in that sense, I think that this section headline does a pretty good job. Stuck, overwhelmed, lacking confidence, confused. This is what we call agitating the problem. So we can agitate the problem. There is a danger of crossing a line in which we become very negative. Some of the people coming here may not see themselves as that, just looking for a resource. So I would agitating the problem is a tried and true way of doing it, and it takes a little bit of an art. So it goes on to talk more about what this is. One of the things that we have to be careful of is readability. Now, I don't know how much of this traffic is coming on the on a mobile device, but you can see on a desktop device, these are very long lines. And what happens is when you get to the end of the line, it becomes difficult to go back and figure out where you start over. So making these fonts larger, bringing the width of this page in will shorten these lines and make them more readable. You also have the issue of what we call a word cloud. So when somebody's initially scanning, the word clouds get overlooked. They're kind of a fog of stuff that often doesn't get read. So the designer could do some things to break this out. And a good example of that is here. So do you have any of the following fears, worries, or doubts? And this is a bulleted list of the things that someone should be, someone could relate to. So a lot of work done here in terms of building a relation and also agitating that problem. And then here we do have a picture of the owner of the salon. I think that, again, this should be captioned, or there should be an overlay on this that says, my name is Katie, and I'm the owner, Katie, owner of the Tribe Hair Salon Company. This is a lot to read. Now, this may be reading their audience well, and that they really want to understand who they're dealing with. We call these kinds of shoppers humanists. They want to understand how they're going to feel if they take advantage of this offer. And so they really do want to know a lot about the people running the company. So if you have, for instance, an about page on your website, the humanists will tend to go to those because they want to know who's leading the company and what the team is. Here is Nathan Altman. And as you read through this, it's not clear if this is a testimonial or if this is another partner in the company. So if you're going to be using social proof, so it's good to have social proof. The best approach is to summarize, pull out what the most important point is in the testimonial and make that the headline. And then having a picture of the person is great. I would go ahead and caption this because, again, as we're looking at the layout, the eye is going to scroll through here. Then it'll be drawn to this, and anything you put around this is going to get read, even if this cloud of words doesn't get read. And the same would apply here. But you can tell that these are authentic and not stock photos. So I believe these are testimonials. And then we go into this benefits section. So what you'll learn at the finishing school, and then here's the offer for how to fill this out. So the typical way for us to engage with people is through a form like this: first name, last name, email, phone, your Instagram link, which is kind of interesting. Are they going to go and look for pictures of me cutting hair or some of the things that I've done? Tell us about your passion for the beauty industry and tell me why you think you're stuck. So these are, this feels more like an application process. So you start asking questions that are hard for people to answer, that they haven't really thought through or they don't feel artful, you're going to increase the abandonment. We call these stop fields. And um, if you have an overwhelming number of people applying or number of people coming, and you actually are trying to weed out the tire kickers, these sorts of fields can actually do that. What it will do is it'll reduce your conversion rate, increase the abandonment rate on the form, but it will increase the quality of the people that are actually completing the form. So I would question if these are necessary for weeding people out, or if in fact you're making it hard for people to finish this because now they have some anxiety, like, how do I answer this? How do I answer it well? Have I really thought about this? Do I have a good answer? Am I qualified? All of those things. Some people may consider their Instagram link personal and not want to uh, provide it. There's no indication of whether these are required or not. So we know email is. These may be optional, but if you were to say like optional, it might reduce the abandonment rate. I think one thing that we might be seeing here is that we tend to write our value proposition and our copy and our messaging in our voice. So I suspect that the folks that wrote this are actually very humanist as well, and they love to talk about their passion for the industry and why they're stuck and all of that stuff. But people coming through are going to be coming with very different modes of research or different personalities, and it may not appeal to the broadest number of people. If you only want humanists who love to talk about this stuff, taking advantage of your offer, then this form does it. Otherwise, there are some stop fields there. At the bottom, we get a map to where the location is. This is a local ad, and some of your typical footer stuff. So I think that this page is hitting on establishing the value proposition, agitating the problem, providing some testimonial from the owner and some testimonials from other students. So there's good social proof here. A little bit about what the features are and perhaps overdoing it in terms of what they ask for in the form. Any questions on this? Let's look at another one. How to get rid of bed bugs. So again, remember, we're looking at value propositions of messaging, the layout, social proof, credibility and authority, and risk reversal. So when I come to this page, it is the call to action is from Google Ads. We don't know what the particular call to action is, but I imagine it is something around how to get rid of bed bugs, bed bug extermination that works. Headlines like this can tend to smack of SEO. So we're trying to communicate with the search engines more than our people, but I don't think in this case that it particularly hurts anyone. And then talk about agitating the problem. Show some pictures of what they're terrified of. You've got these things in your bed and you're seeing pictures of them. It really is going to agitate the problem. And they lead off by calling out the company name and then listing the points of their value proposition. So they have a guarantee, they have a warranty, they claim to have the best pricing, no prep, it's organic, it's affordable, lots of exclamation points here. If you have to shout it, you have to wonder why you're shouting, and it might negatively impact the credibility of the statement that you're making. If you want to get rid of big bugs, realize all avenues and options must be explored and employed. So let's see the National Pest Management best practices here. So this is a broken promise because there is no link. When you're bringing someone to a landing page, do you really want to take them away from the landing page? Can you not give them the information that they're looking for? So it starts off with chemical treatment and goes into some detail about this for people who are searching for this can help really build credibility. But from a layout standpoint, begin to look at how this draws the eye. So we've got this again, another terrifying picture of the things that could be in your bed with you. And then these lime green on red, these are really popping. So the eye is going to maybe see the headline, but it's going to go here. It's going to see word clouds, and it might be seeing this. One of the things you want to be careful with your messaging is introducing objections when you think you're managing objections. So there's heat treatment. Uh, I, this sounds like a big issue. How do you heat the bed up? And then canine inspections. Are you going to be bringing dogs into my house? What if I have dogs? So going into too much detail on the landing page, especially if what you're selling is, well, what you're offering is, well, you're asking people to call, maybe you should let the person on the phone deal with some of these things, and not introduce objections like, oh, they're going to bring dogs in. There is a video here, and one of the things that we want to do on our landing pages from an analytics standpoint is make sure that we're tracking things like how many people are actually watching the video. This is the first time that I'm seeing this.
All right, we're about to start another thermal.
So this might answer a lot of the questions about what it means. And perhaps this should open up larger. Perhaps this should be higher on the page.
It's covered over. All you see is LC.
Some more word clouds, do-it-yourself treatment. So we get down here and there's a way to do it yourself. So what we've done is, number one, there hasn't really been a clear call to action. We don't know what this page is asking us to do. Usually a form on the page will say, oh, they're asking me to fill out this form. The primary call to action, I'm assuming, is going to be to call us. So I think that needs to be really brought out and repeated down the page, and certainly introduced at the bottom, what we call a dripping pan. So dripping pan is repeating the offer at the bottom, because somebody who's read to the bottom is probably engaged in your value proposition and the message that you're giving. Go ahead when they get to the bottom and give them a way to take action. There is a download here that is almost invisible. So again, from a layout and UX standpoint, if you're going to have a call to action, if you're going to call out something that someone is supposed to do, make it prominent. Make this look more like a button is how I would format this. And I'm just... So this does overwrite the page. So it takes them away from the page. It's easy enough to go back like this, but again, on a landing page, anything that you're doing to take them away from the page is working against you. It gives them an opportunity to run away. And then strange little things like this. So anytime you add something to the interface that requires the user to understand how to use it, like for instance, I'm not sure how to get out of this at this point. These are all links taking me away. So I think this page could use a UX and layout revitalization, draw the eye through, make sure that the eye is getting to the parts of the page and reading the copy rather than being drawn away from high contrast elements. If we find out in analytics that this video is getting played a lot and then it's helping conversion rates, let's make it bigger. Let's make it more impactful, maybe included in this section where you're introducing some of these potential objections, and make those calls to action really pop. If you want people to call, make it a big button and repeat it down the page. Any questions?
Yeah, we have a question from Nico about I think the text clouds, and just when you have longer text. He's asking if long text is better to do 2 columns.
Well, so if you're able to use 2 columns to shorten the lines, then that might be preferable in a desktop format. On a mobile device, the 2 columns will be put into 1 column. I would rather see it left as one column so that it's a good flow that kind of keeps people scrolling, and that you just really tighten up the columns that you're using, or increase the size of the font. And very rarely do we see a problem um, with increasing the font size, especially for those of us that have to wear glasses to see some of those fonts. The other thing you can do is break this up, break these word clouds up. Use more bulleted text, use highlighting, use subheads, break it up where you can pull out whatever the primary issue is, or the primary point of this paragraph is. Go ahead and pull it out into a subhead so they can very quickly scan, see the paragraphs that address the questions I have in my mind, and read those portions of it rather than having to read through all of this. If your paragraph starts and it's very entertaining or humorous, that can pull people through as well. These are challenging insects, so be wary of the kits being sold online. Other questions? Okay. So let's talk about some of the landing page basics. We're going to go a little bit more into the theory here, but just at a high level. When we talk about a landing page only has two jobs. Number one, it needs to keep the promise that was made in the ad or the email or the social media post or the link on your website that brought the visitors there. And if you don't know what that promise is, what promise is bringing people to the site, you're not really building a landing page. You're building something more like a home page or an informational page. The second job of the landing page is to get the visitor to make a choice, choose in or out, but it needs to be very clear that you're asking them to do something. This is why those prominent calls to action are important, and the forms make it very clear that you're asking people to take a next step. So even if they choose not to, at least you ask them, and there's something about the landing page that didn't appeal to them, then they should be on their way. So an example I like to use is, let's pretend we're the Mint and we're selling dollar bills for 50 cents. A good standard landing page by these rules is this one right here. Get US dollars 50% off, responding to this ad that talks about 50% off. Oops. And a call to action, some way to take action. And it's pretty clear, since there's nothing else on this page, that this is what you're asking them to do. But of course, click here doesn't do anything for them. It doesn't do anything for you. So we really do need to step in and ask for more. So if we're going to ask them to buy, we need to know the quantity. We need to know the credit card number, some very personal information, their name, their address, the security code on the back of their credit card, the expiration date. And of course, these are all the things that we need to charge their credit cards illegally. So we really do need to build out that value proposition. So this is where we talk about the copy. Here's just a little copy, and yes, my copywriter clearly needs some work here, but just as an example, we want to establish that we're the leader, that these are genuine dollar bills, and that they're trusted by billions of people around the world. So we've begun to build out our landing page from those two primary elements, that we want to keep the promise and then we want to bring people to choice. And then we can work in some of the other issues that we talked about. So credibility and authority, our logos often communicate that. You can see that we've added a picture of the product. Marketing 101 is if you have a picture of the product, let people see it. Let people see it so they can imagine owning it or working with you. So this is where pictures of your employees, your vans, if you have a home services business, the report that you're going to be offering them, show a picture of it in some way, even if you're delivering it as a PDF. We have social proof in terms of additional customers. Japan and China buy a lot of dollars. And we've done some risk reversal here by putting the privacy policy link underneath the call to action. Now, click here is not the best call to action. We could improve this by saying, get your discounted dollar bills. The call to action should, especially under a form, should let people know what they are going to get if they click on that. Now, in this format, this is not the best layout, so this doesn't have the best layout. But in this format, It should give you a good idea of how we build this out rather than starting with our corporate template, which has links to other parts of the site. We really do want to start with a clean landing page and work our way into the value proposition, the layout, the social proof, the credibility, and the risk reversal. So let's take a look at LegalZoom.com. Got them up here. So start your corporation on the right path. Now they do say start your corporation, but you can see how this is kind of a conceptual headline. Start your corporation on the right path. So I always like to look in here to see if there's some place where they buried the lead. Incorporate your business might be just a fine headline that doesn't make us think about the right path. In other words, it's more functional than it is conceptual. Make your business official. That might be kind of a middle line where it tells you what you're doing, but it also offers a benefit. The thing I like about this is that, so you'll notice that the call to action is in orange, and the colors on the page don't have any orange unless they're calls to action. So if you've ever wondered what color a call to action button should be, it should be a color that doesn't disappear into the canvas of the rest of the page. It needs to stand out. They have an interesting approach here where they start with letting the visitor solve their problem. So rather than a form that says, we'll get back to you, this is a software application. Websites are software applications. Can you take them through a process that allows you to provide a service and bring them through? We're seeing a lot of luck with quiz style forms as opposed to the stacked form of fields, which we call a pancake form. So it tells you what the process that you're going to go through is, talks about the two paths. And this is something that I think a lot of us will have to address. Do we show pricing on the page? Especially if you have a service and it has multiple levels. This is a good way to go about it. So you only list the things that are different between the two so that I can evaluate them. And you do something visually with the UX layout that allows you to highlight the most popular, in this case, they say fastest service, that will draw the eye to that and make people think, I should do that. And what it's doing is it's something we call clustering, where I feel like I should consider this because it's most popular, the best deal, in this case, fastest service. And so I begin to choose between these two as opposed to, oh, here's the cheapest one. That's the one I want to focus on. Would I bump up one more? So you get more people choosing between this high end and the way that they've kind of pulled the eye. Frequently asked questions are very helpful on landing pages. When you talk about how much information you want to put on a landing page, you really want to put everything that they would need to know to make a decision to move forward on the page. So frequently asked questions allows you to manage objections that might keep them from doing that. And, they're asking people to really start a process here. So this is a fairly high ask as opposed to downloading a PDF or something like that. What we find with things like navigation is that it can take the person away from the landing page, but it can also build credibility. And so these are the things that this company is particularly talented at, when it has credibility in these areas. So if you choose to start off using a navigation, I would pay close attention to how many people actually use the navigation to navigate away. The thing is that when somebody says, like, yeah, I think I'm going to do this, the first thing I want to do is find a way to delay their decision. It's just an anxiety reaction that humans do. Down here, they do some more benefit building. They do some credibility building, talking about how many people that they've done, 1 million subscriptions, 650,000 consultants. These are pretty big numbers. And then meet our customers where the testimonials live. And having real pictures of your customers is a great way to go about it. Again, if you could pull out what the main issue is here, like LegalZoom was a great option for us. That would probably be a better headline than the name of the company, and then put the name of the company as a signature, essentially. We want to do right by you. So this is, again, risk reversal. They show that their guarantee logo. And you see how you can talk about your guarantee, but the designer went ahead and put a graphic element. These sorts of things draw the eye. Excuse me. So the designer is making sure that people see that there is a guarantee. And then some sub calls to action, some secondary calls to action, and then the dripping pan. So I would say that this really hits on all of the cylinders and provides just enough information for people to feel comfortable at least going in and checking to see if their company name is available. We want to use these secondary calls to action very carefully. But since this is a pretty high bar for asking people to actually start the process, I think it's okay to give them some other resources to look at. Any questions on this?
Yeah, it looks like Olivier has a question. Olivier, if you'd like to come off of mute and ask live, you may, or I can read your question from the chat.
Yeah, if you can read it, can I? Because I've got kids with me and that's going to be difficult.
Sure, sure. So, he says, it's great to start with best practices and use a cheat sheet when building the page. However, the best way to optimize is to A/B test different versions and ideas, best practices, rinse and repeat. What are your best practices recommendations in terms of best tests to run on a landing page? And what parts of a landing page does produce the best results? And what are the best tools for the job, in your opinion?
All right. Well, that's quite a bit, actually. Let's hop back here and just say, here's the first thing I would do is I would go through each of these categories and I would write down your ideas. So messaging and value proposition, change the headline to make it more functional, less conceptual. Make sure that I talk about these 3 points and I provide a feature, benefit, and proof for each of them. Make the layout better so it's very clear that that I'm asking people to make a choice and what they should do next. Integrate the associations that we're a member of, or customers that have used us, or things that will build credibility and authority. Add testimonials. Provide a link to our privacy policy, or have a statement that says that we will never spam you, or use one of those logos that says if you give us your credit card number, it's protected and can't be intercepted by bad actors. So you end up with a list of ideas on the page, and you really want to focus on the ones that have the most impact, the ones that you think are a problem. And for instance, making the video bigger on the page that we looked at was one of the ideas I came out for the UXN layout. You can go in and see how many people are clicking on that, and if people who click on that tend to convert. And with that data, with that proof, you can give that idea more priority. We actually use a spreadsheet to rank these ideas, and you can do the same thing. But deciding what to test next is really going to be a function of how big of an impact do I think it'll have? How much evidence do I have? And you want to be working on a page that gets a considerable amount of traffic in order to do A/B testing, because you're going to need at least 200 to 300 conversions to finish an A/B test in a reasonable amount of time. In terms of tools, there are so many tools on the market that are capable of A/B testing that I think what you will want to look at is a tool that if you don't have a development team that can do client-side JavaScript, then you want a tool that has a good WYSIWYG editor that will allow you to go in and make these changes to the site, move things around, change text on the site, etc. It becomes a little bit more complicated to change the CSS and the style and design of the page. But some of these WYSIWYG editors can get you pretty close to being able to do those sorts of things. Did
Oh,
I?
so yeah, I think you answered them all. I think to Olivier, I would direct you to the course. It's not it's in depth and we'll give you more context for each of your questions, but it's also not like so many hours that you need weeks to get through it. It's definitely something you could digest within a week. So I would also direct you to that. Great questions. Thank you.
So in this next section, what we want to do is understand kind of what tools we have for evaluating our landing pages. First of all, I've talked about analytics. We do want to have analytics on our landing pages so that we can get at a minimum number of people visiting the site and the number of people converting. But analytics will also store things like number of people that are clicking on things like video, so we can see how those elements are performing. Something we use a lot, especially on the messaging side of things, are these online focus groups. We use tools like Usability Hub, and what we can do there is they bring panels of people who are willing to look at our creative, and so we can show them the creative and then ask them questions about the creative. So it doesn't even require us to have a functioning landing page. We can use mock-ups, and there are a number of tests. We can use the first click test to see how quickly people can find a particular call to action and click on it, and how long that takes. A preference test, which is kind of like a mini A/B test that allows us to present two options to people and ask them questions about which they prefer. Question test, where we put up a creative and then we begin to ask questions about things like as simple as, does this company seem credible? What does this company do? Where would you click if you wanted to take action? What are the key benefits of this company? Why would you choose this company over other companies? And then the 5-second test, which is fantastic for evaluating headlines and images at the top of a page, where the panelists see your image for 5 seconds, and then you ask questions about it. It disappears, and then you ask questions after it's disappeared. So what does this company do? Does this company seem credible? What would you click on if you saw, if you wanted to take action? Do you remember any of the details? Things like that can be answered, and it can help you really get through a number of headline and image combinations without doing full-on A/B tests. So you can provision 25 or 50 people to come and look at each of your designs and see which ones answers most positively, and that gives you an idea of which designs are doing the best. Heat map tools will track the distance that people scroll on your site, where they're clicking, where their mouse is moving, and most of them will also do session recordings, which we'll talk briefly about. And so this can tell you where people are clicking on a page. So in this example, for a golf resort, they put the unlimited golf at the top, but not many people were clicking on it, only 17 people, whereas almost 200 people during this period were clicking on free breakfast. So maybe free breakfast could be moved to the top. You can track how people are using your form. This is an example of a very long form, and we were interested where people were dropping off in the process. But this will give you some feedback as to where drop downs or questions like we saw that might be a little bit harder for people to answer might be causing abandonment. And this is an example of a session recording, and these take a while to go through, but you'll see things in the way people are interacting with your website that you just won't see otherwise. Here, people are trying to click on this number. It's not clickable. So it's pretty easy for us to go in and make it clickable and take them on to the next step. And then, of course, A/B testing tools. If you have enough traffic, you can actually use the A/B testing tool to either split the traffic between two landing pages that you're testing, or actually use the testing tool to make changes in the visitor's browser. So you can swap a headline very easily without creating a second page using these testing tools. You can move content around. You can swap out images and things like that quite easily with tools like this. So in this next section, we're going to be talking about what information would we want to gather, and how would we test it? How would we gather some data to support our ideas for how to make this better? The complete guide to accounting for foreign exchange transactions is up next.
I've got a couple of quick questions
Okay.
regarding I think you said it was usability hub. I don't know if that's the type of service or the name of the service.
That is actually the name of the service. So
Okay.
you would look for user testing, user research. In the course, I actually provide the names and the logos of companies
Fantastic.
throughout that. So
Great.
you go a lot more
And
into the tools in the course.
and I'm assuming that they test both mobile and desktop in a session.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
So the download the free guide is the call to action that was in the offer in the ad, social ads, paid media, and a blog article. And when we come to this page, we see the complete guide to accounting for foreign exchange transactions. So I would say that this headline keeps the promise pretty well. And then it asks the question, are payments and receipts in foreign currency currently found in your accounting records? If this is an indication of a problem and your visitors will answer to this like, oh my gosh, yes, then this is a pretty good lead in to have them read the rest. They do a little bit of highlighting here, collaborate with fintech institutions down to the last detail. And the call to action is very clear, download the free guide. This takes you down to a form. You might argue that bringing the form up would be better. This is an image of the cover of what is being offered, but it's not really clear that that's the case. So go ahead and caption this regarding what the guide is. One of the things that we tend to do, especially if we're offering a guide that is in support of our business, is that we then go on to talk about all the great things about the business or all the great things about our software or whatever the guide is teasing. This landing page does a good job of going in and talking about what's in the guide and what you'll learn. And I think that's a mistake we sometimes make. Questions like how long is it? How long will it take me to read are really good questions that should be answered on a landing page. So I would be, number one, interested in how many people are clicking on this versus coming down and starting here. And where would we find that? We'd find that in the heat map reports because it tracks where people are clicking. We can also find out if there's anything in this relatively short form, which I don't think there is, that's causing people to abandon using form tracking technology. I would also be interested to see how many people are scrolling down to see this really good credibility building data. If the scroll stops here, then I would argue that maybe you should move this up higher, maybe directly under here, to build credibility around the claim that you're making and the offer that you're making. And this is a relatively short page, so I don't know that a dripping pan is absolutely necessary the way this one is designed. But on a mobile device where this will be stretched out over a much longer frame, it might make sense to go ahead and have it download the free guide section at the bottom of the page. They chose not to have a headline, and they really did avoid talking about their company and their services. You might talk a little bit about your company or services in the case in this context of building credibility, but I think this is about all people need to do to understand that this guide that they're getting is legit. Here's an opt-in for the mailing list, and there is also the GDPR. So this was translated to English, so some of this translation may not be the best. But this is a landing page that keeps the two promises, doesn't have any ancillary information in it. And it's a sort of a product that probably testimonials are not something that's necessary. So I think that this does a really good, concise job of getting people in to download this particular product. And analytics will certainly tell us that. So what I did also is I wanted to go and see what a competing accounting service might be doing. So I looked for accounting for foreign exchange transactions. I got Paro.ai, and I would just wanted to compare and contrast that with this one. Get started for free. Talk to an accountant today. So remember, what I typed in was accounting for foreign exchange transactions. They paid for an ad on this, but their landing page doesn't really say anything about foreign exchange transactions at all. So this is breaking the first job of a landing page. They're not keeping the promise. The call to action is, interestingly enough, highlighted here. You'll notice that the color of the buttons are the same as some of the other elements on the page. So they don't pop quite as much. I would consider a different, either a different design that pulls this out, or a different color would make that pop. But this is pretty smart. So as our eyes come through, we're going to see this. We're going to see the headline, and our eyes going to be drawn to this colorful image of somebody winking at us. And they put the call to action right next to that image. So this is using juxtaposition, and I think it's doing quite well. I would be very interested in looking at the heat map reports or the session recordings to see how many people are clicking on this versus clicking on this. And you could probably reduce the cognitive load of this by getting rid of schedule my free call. There is some credibility building and social proof here. All your business accounting needs in one place. Again, not really answering my question about international stuff, but it hits their primary benefits. Run your business, we'll do the accounting. You can talk today. Are you worried about IRS compliance? And so this is an agitation. And you'll see that as I'm going through, my eye will be drawn to this and to this headline. So I think that this does a good job of bringing the visitor through the value proposition. The call to action is repeated, which is generally recommended. Here we have the testimonial and some more things for credibility building on the message. They do have a dripping pan. Talk to an accountant today. Schedule my call. So I would say that, again, this does a pretty good job of appealing to people who are looking for an accountant, but does not answer my question of what about international accounting. So if you're going to be camping on and paying for ads on terms like this, you should really consider having another landing page that at least addresses accounting, the foreign exchange issues. Otherwise, it's a completely broken process. And I imagine that for this audience, while that is I think a well-designed landing page, is probably not performing very well for them. So we've only got a few minutes left. Basically, what we're talking about here is a new way to design. Rather than working with just best practices, we really, and using this assumptive design process where your design team makes a whole lot of decisions about what goes on the page, and you really don't know how well it's going to perform until you launch it. What we want to do is use things like data we've gathered in the tools that I talked about, user testing, user research, the heat map reports, what we see in analytics, to let that help us guide the different copy, the images that we're using, the layout that we're using as we go through this process of building out the landing page, so that by the time we get to launch, we've moved a lot of the risk into the design process. So one more, I typed in law practice management software, and I was curious to see how this landing page performed for this. This was in the same category as one of our submissions. Best law practice software. Neo is easy to use and easy to integrate with the apps you're already using. Get a demo. How did Neos do in terms of keeping the promise? So they say best legal case management, manage your cases, documents. Neil says everything you need to manage your law firm. So they're not necessarily keeping all of the promises. Easy to use, easy to integrate with your apps. Let's see if they address that somewhere on the page. very low entry, except you have to answer the question of number of users. So again, anytime you start asking questions that maybe they're not sure, like who would use it, it can be a point of abandonment. But I'm sure that this is being used to help prioritize these leads. 23,000 plus firms. So here we're getting a picture of the product. And they're using this to anchor some of these credibility builders. Here we get to talk about the benefits. And again, the question of should they show the price? I think in this case, it's very helpful. They do have best value here, kind of written above the Neos Pro. So they're using that same technique to cluster these different offerings. But I think the designer could have done a much better job of really highlighting this, so the visitor sees plan details, and then their eye is drawn all the way over here initially. Another technique that is used is to put the most expensive plan to the left, something that I would test because it doesn't always work. But what that does is it establishes 149 as the value of the product, and then they say, well, 119 and 99 seem much less expensive, and maybe I don't need everything in that. But you're anchoring the value at that higher level. More proof points, features, and benefits. A little bit of testimonial. Again, having a headline that Neos makes it extremely easy to stay up to date and man it. Well, Neos makes it extremely easy might be the call out here. And if you can use a picture, it will increase the impact. Here we've got social proof. As we said, this is borrowing trust from other entities. They do have dripping pants, so schedule a demo is at the bottom. And we did see schedule a demo here in the pricing area. So they do repeat the offer several times. This is I wonder what happened here. Oh, so when I changed this, more fields appeared. I had not noticed this before. Firm name, work name, phone number, state. So this is kind of like a simple multi-step form. I did answer this question, and then I was given more things to fill out. But sometimes what this can do is give the visitor a win, a yes, and can give them a little bit of momentum to get through some of these other questions. Current assembly customer. So drop downs you've got to be careful with in all of your forms, because if the answer to the visitor's question is not on the form, they will abandon because it makes them feel dumb. I don't know what any of this means, but these are probably Neos products. So I can choose that one, but you can see how I've gotten down to this point. It's good that it's the last one, but I've introduced some sort of a cognitive hiccup in this that can make people, if they're on the fence about whether to get that demo, then this would push them over the edge. So I think we're at time. That's all I have for today. Any questions, if it's okay to run a little long?
Yeah, we can go about 5 minutes longer if needed. Firstly, thank you, Brian. This was full of so many knowledge bombs. I loved it. Anyone have questions? Please raise your hand, drop it in the chat. Yes, the awkward silence. Unless you are typing in an answer that is long, or a question that is long, I'm going to assume that we do not have any questions. Is that correct? Awesome. Okay, well, Brian, thank you again. This was fantastic.
Sorry, Kayla, I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Brian, from all the tests that you've run and all the clients that you work with, do you have any compiled statistics around what part of the landing page you want to focus your attention to, because this is usually the one that actually produces the best impact on conversions or engagement? So like could be the title of the landing page, could be the headline, could be an image. when you look at a page, of course, you see, and we just went through that, all the best practices, but is there any part of the landing page that usually produce the best results? Could be social proof, if you have one or not, that usually actually bump your conversion rate by X%. Do you have any stats compile around that? Or other sources that you can point us to?
Yeah. So what we find is that if you can accomplish the two jobs of the landing page, number one, keep the promise that's made in the ad, the email, the social media post, or the link, and let the visitor know that you're asking them to take action at the top of the page, that's a great place to start.
Okay.
If the top of the page can encapsulate as much as your value proposition as possible, that's fantastic. So the copy needs to set a premise that keeps the promise and gives the person a reason to read the paragraph below. The paragraph below needs to give them a reason to explore the page more. And things like having a form at the top of the page, make it very clear that you're asking people to take action. If you're going to use an image at the top as well, avoid the stylistic images and choose an image that moves the value proposition forward. So if these guys were, trustworthy, then I would want to see a picture of one of their employees, somebody that I would be talking to, one of their customers, or in this case, they chose to put a picture of the software itself with some credibility builders aligned with it. Wherever that image is, the caption or the words on it are going to get read more as much as a headline. So make sure you take advantage of the captions. But if you were to pick like one thing, it's like make the top of the page, establish your value proposition, keep the promise, let them know they're being asked to do something or there's an opportunity for them here, and give them just enough information to get them to scroll and begin to read the rest of your amazing copy.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, we have one more question. We'll try to sneak an answer in as quickly as possible. This is from Dima. And Dima is asking, how specific does a landing page need to be in relation to a Google ad campaign? I have a home services client that has different campaigns for different cities they service. Do I need a landing page for each? Main goal is a form fill for a free estimate.
So obviously, building and maintaining a portfolio of landing pages is pretty difficult. It can be difficult, especially for those ads that are maybe long tail and have fewer visits. But yes, for each of your ads that has if you cluster your ads around what the offer is, you need to make sure that those are going to a landing page that keeps that promise at the top of the page somewhere. Oftentimes it's in the headline, but it can also be done in, a badge off to the side or something like that. The other thing for local businesses is there is some evidence that showing images of where you are, that you're in their town. So things like putting maps. We've tested, a map of Michigan for facilities that are in Michigan versus other states, and have seen an uptick in conversions from that because it feels familiar. You're talking about their state. I'm at the right place is basically the question that it's answering. A lot of people like to use city skylines. It's not very helpful, not particularly helpful. I think you could use you could use, especially in the hero area, images that are more compelling. But customizing just that simple element gives people a sense like, oh, these guys are from Austin or in Austin and understand my city. But in general, what I would do is, especially for your most common offers and for your most clicked ads, I would consider having a separate landing page that that echoes the unique offer that was made in the ad.
100%. And that's also going to affect your ad quality score, which is going to affect ad performance and the auction results and all of that. So on both sides, both from a campaign optimization perspective and the landing page conversion, it's good to do what Brian recommended and cluster your landing pages as closely as you can around like your keyword groups for the promise, delivering on the promise. Yes, may also be better for local SEO ranking to have separate pages. That's true if you're doubling up on landing pages for ads and SEO. Well, folks, we ran over just a bit, so we're going to have to end here. Brian, thank you again for your time. Thank you, everyone, for your questions and participation. Thank you again, and I hope everyone has the great rest of your day. Bye now.